What's up guys, this is KDCloudy. Welcome back to another video. Really excited to be talking about Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning's IMAX with Laser experience. And this time to watch this movie, I happen to be back home in Delhi, so I caught this movie in Select Citywalk IMAX and PVR Priya IMAX. And in my opinion, these are two of the most finest IMAX with Laser theaters in the country, and it's a good opportunity to revisit them again. Now, before we get started, I want to say that I'm a huge Mission Impossible fan. As you can tell, I'm like all dressed up for this movie. I even got this t-shirt for myself printed to wear to the theater. I was so excited. I've been watching these movies since I was 12. I've watched all the movies like multiple times on and on. I can quote the lines. In fact, I even own the Blu-ray for Mission Impossible Fallout. So needless to say, I was extremely hyped for this film. And no, it wasn't the perfect film. There were a few issues with the film. You can check out my entire Letterboxd review if you want to, but in both my viewings, I really enjoyed myself, and I think I'll miss the series if this was the last movie, in fact. But yeah, what I am more interested to talk about in this video is the use of the IMAX format and the IMAX experience. Now, the Mission Impossible franchise has historically been very conservative about using the IMAX format and about shifting aspect ratios. But the first time they did that was in Ghost Protocol when they used actual IMAX film cameras. And then in Fallout, they were using a mix of 35mm and large format digital cameras. So the IMAX sequences expanded up to 1.9:1. And even though the entirety of this movie is shot on large format digital cameras, only about 45 minutes or so expand quite creatively, I might add, to the 1.9:1 aspect ratio and fill those IMAX screens. The IMAX sequences were pretty fantastic, but the one point of concern I had was that pretty much the entire movie is shot on anamorphic lenses. So it means that a bunch of the IMAX shots were kind of reframed and cropped from the sides to fill that IMAX screen. Now, I'm not really complaining and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I was just like concerned that, the screen filling effect was coming at the cost of composition and framing. So even though the intended composition was scope and like a wider image, you crop it down for fulfilling IMAX's requirements. But you know what? It looked pretty awesome and fine either way, and it looked very immersive. In fact, all the transitions from scope to the taller IMAX aspect ratio were awesome, very creatively used, which we've also seen in Fallout. So yeah, great use of IMAX in this one. Now, my first viewing was at Select Citywalk Saket because this was the place I watched Mission Impossible Fallout in 2018 for the first time. So it only seemed fitting. And this time I took my parents with me for the 9:45 a.m. show in the morning. And the crowd was packed, and it was just wonderful to come back to this theater. Now, coming to the tech specs, this auditorium has a screen size of 53 feet by 30 feet, 299 seats, and of course is retrofit with the flagship IMAX Commercial Laser projector and 12-channel sound system, both of which are extremely rare and makes this particular location very special. Now, I have visited this theater multiple times, but the last time I talked about this theater in this channel was in December 2022 after I watched Avatar: The Way of Water, and I remember being pretty brutal about it and being very harsh because I had just watched the same movie in the giant 100-foot Prasad's PCX screen. So this obviously felt tiny, but honestly, most IMAXs in India are tiny either way, so I am kind of indifferent to the size. What this auditorium excels at is the geometry. The seating is actually pretty steep, and if you pick the right row, you can compensate for the smaller screen by getting a larger field of view. And the seats are great, very premium. I think one of the first IMAXs with recliners and sliding sofa type. The interiors on the walls are very dark, blue and black mostly, very non-intrusive. And you know what? This remains one of the goated IMAXs of India. And yeah, finally I was seated, I was ready, I was excited to lay my eyes on the 4K crisp presentation DCP of Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning. And I watched it, and the one thing which stood out to me, audiovisual quality wise, was the sheer amount of contrast. Now, coming back to the projector which is powering this theater, the Commercial Laser IMAX projector, this is the same projector model which is powering the BFI IMAX in London, the Krungsri IMAX in Bangkok, the IMAX in Philippines, in Mall of Asia. And there are only two of these in India, one over here and the second one in the Phoenix, Lower Parel in Mumbai. And while IMAX doesn't publicly reveal the specs and the internal technicalities of each of their projectors, here's the only piece of information I could find. So yes, this experience was awesome, especially the underwater sequence, and anytime there were deep shadows and blacks, the commercial laser projector absolutely shined. Now, after my first watch here, I rushed off to Vasant Vihar at my favorite Delhi metro at the PVR Priya IMAX. Now, I've been here a couple of times, and honestly, the vibe here is magical. It's in the middle of this shopping square called Basant Lok and this very nice IMAX single screen building. And of course, when you enter, you're greeted with the massive IMAX screen and the red walls and seats hugging the screen. Now, I've made a dedicated review of this theater previously, but just to recap, this has a whopping 69-foot wide screen, 316 seats, and an IMAX Laser XT projector, which is their latest new generation laser offering, and 12-channel audio, which again makes this very special. The geometry of this theater could have been better, but you know what? It's okay. I'm over it. The biggest strength of this theater really is the giant 69-foot wide screen. Even it's huge. You enter it and you just feel the grandness of the screen, and this is what IMAX should feel like. And it handily trumps the Select Citywalk Saket in terms of sheer screen size. Similarly, for 90% of screens in India, it's just that big. And the second biggest strength of PVR Priya over Select Citywalk is the sound. Now, even though both have the same 12-channel sound system, which, sound amazing. I'm not saying Select Citywalk sounds bad. It sounds great, especially the front channels. But I think the surround bubble was just more distinct and more immersive in PVR Priya. And I think that's because of the giant side speakers on both of the walls. I mean, just look at the size of that thing. It's so much bigger than that, what we saw at Select Citywalk. It's pretty crazy. And yeah, all that being said, I was ready for my second viewing of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning at this giant IMAX with laser screen. And the biggest difference I noticed in the projection was the drop in contrast. Now, like I said, this theater is powered by IMAX's Laser XT model, which is supposed to be a more affordable projector model for IMAX theaters who want to upgrade their aging equipment. So it's a step down what we had in Saket, but it's still using the latest laser technology. And the commercial laser 4K presentation in Select Citywalk was just more vibrant, more punchy. The one in PVR Priya was just slightly washed up. Now, I'll be honest, for the longest time I couldn't tell the difference, and it's just now that I've done like an A/B test, watching the same movie back to back in these two theaters, was I able to tell the difference. Now, if you go to Select Citywalk Saket, you'll definitely be able to appreciate the extra bit of contrast. But to the unsuspecting eye, PVR Priya really looks good because 4K laser in general looks so good. Now, that's not to say that PVR Priya is bad or IMAX with Laser XT is bad. In fact, the subtitles on my second viewing were much sharper than what I saw at Select Citywalk. And to this date, the sharpest IMAX presentation I've ever seen is still Oppenheimer at PVR Priya IMAX. So overall, in conclusion, I think both these theaters are great. Select Citywalk has like a punchier image, slightly small screen, but overall a very immersive experience with the flagship laser projector. And PVR Priya, of course, has the bigger screen, punchier sound. Both have good enough amount of bass, but I still think PVR Priya edges out in terms of sharpness. And I think both have their pros and cons, but both are extremely awesome. And I think the residents of Delhi are extremely lucky to have such amazing IMAX with laser theaters in the same city, in fact, in the same South Delhi area. I would also like to say that don't let me stop you from visiting any theater you want. Both these theaters are awesome, and you should check them out for yourself before you make a decision for your next movie. Alright, that was it. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I had an amazing time watching Mission Impossible back to back in these two theaters. To the point I was tired, to the point that I actually didn't want to watch this movie a third time. But now that it's been a couple more days, I think I can watch it a third time. But yeah, I think my wallet would disagree. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Cheers.